Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with your hostess with the mostest, Rosie DeCandia. Thank you. Thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate you watching again. As we all know, I do not recap the previous chapter, so we're going to go right into the book. And what is the book again that you may add what we're reading? Ask Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Okay, my friends, are you ready to fall in love with you? Okay, we're moving on to chapter 6. Chapter 6, Pig and Peppa. Oh, when I was a little girl, we had a doggy. I think it was a cockapoo, and his name was Peppa. Oh, he was so cute. That was many years ago. I was just a mere child. Oh, so long ago. All right, Pig and Peppa. For a minute or two, she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in livery. Otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery, with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about. "What's it all about, Alfie?" and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman repeated in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of the words a little. "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." Then they both bowed low, and their curls got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the wood for fear of their hearing her. And when she next peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no sort of use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for 2 reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside, no one could possibly hear you." And certainly there was a most extraordinary noise going on within. A constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then a great crash, as if a dish or kettle had been broken to pieces. "Please then," said Alice, "how am I to get in?" "There might be some sense in your knocking," the footman went on without attending to her, "if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. Look at Alice. She's got lots of manners for a little kid, you know what I'm saying? And this footman, I don't know what the hell he's about, but let's see what's going to happen in this house. Hello? "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head, but at any rate he might answer questions. How am I to get in?" she repeated aloud. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out, straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing had happened. "How am I to get in?" asked Alice again in a louder tone. "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know. That's actually quite a deep question, because here she is trying to get into this place and he's like, are you to get in? And that to me is kind of like a deep question. I don't think this frog footman's expecting it to be deep, and I think he's just, kind of questioning her. But let's think about it. It's like sometimes you have a goal or something that you're so dead set on doing, and it seems like you're facing all this adversity or these obstacles. And sometimes you got to sit back and ask yourself, is it supposed to be this much work to get where I want to be? Because not saying that life is always without challenges. I mean, there are challenges in life. But sometimes when you keep facing one after the other, you got to question to yourself. You're like, is this freaking worth it? So I think this kind of can pique your thing, and like where it's like, are you supposed to be doing what you're doing? Is it that much work? Because if it's bringing you more grief than joy, I don't know. Remember what they say. Is it Maria Kondo who says, keep whatever brings you joy or release whatever doesn't? Whatever. I don't know. I didn't read the book. Well, I read it, but I don't remember it. Anyway, here we go. It was, no doubt, only Alice did not like to be told so. It's really dreadful, she muttered to herself, the way all the creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy. The footman seemed to think this a good opportunity for repeating his remark with variations. I shall sit here, he said, on and off for days and days. But what am I to do? Said Alice. Anything you like, said the footman, and began whistling. Oh, there's no use in talking to him, said Alice desperately. He's perfectly idiotic. And she opened the door and went in. Ballsy move on this kid's part, really. The door led right into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. There's certainly too much pepper in that soup, Alice said to herself, as well as she could for sneezing. There was certainly too much of it in the air. Even the Duchess sneezed occasionally. And as for the baby, it was sneezing and howling alternately without a moment's pause. The only things in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and a large cat which was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. Please, would you tell me, said Alice a little timidly, for she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, why your cat grins like that. Well, it wasn't good manners, Alice, for you to barge into the bitch's house. So now all of a sudden you're minding your manners? Come on now, girl. Whatever. But you know what? Sometimes in life you gotta grab the brass ring and just go for the gusto. And Alice is on a mission. She's gotta get to this frickin' garden, wherever that frickin' white bunny is. She ain't letting anything deter her, okay? It's a Cheshire cat, said the Duchess, and that's why. Pig! She said the last word with such sudden violence that Alice quite jumped. But she saw in another moment that it was addressed to the baby and not to her, so she took courage and went on again. I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that cats could grin. They all can, said the Duchess, and most of them do. I don't know of any that do, Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have got into a conversation. Oh, no. Who's she always talking about, everybody? You know, frickin' Dinah. I wonder if she's going to bring up Dinah, her cat. Oy vey. You don't know much, said the Duchess, and that's a fact. Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation. While she was trying to fix on one, the cook took the cauldron of soup off the fire and at once set to work throwing everything within her reach at the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them, even when they hit her, and the baby was howling so much already that it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt it or not. Oh, please mind what you're doing, cried Alice, jumping up and down in an agony of terror. Oh, there goes his precious nose, as an unusually large saucepan flew close by it and very nearly carried it off. If everybody minded their own business, the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, the world would go round a deal faster than it does. Which would not be an advantage, said Alice, who felt very glad to get an opportunity of showing off a little of her knowledge. Just think of what work it would make with the day and night. You see, the earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis. Talking of axes, said the Duchess, chop off her head. Oh, damn, that's a violent bitch. Alice glanced rather anxiously to the cook to see if she meant to take the hint, but the cook was busy stirring the soup and seemed not to be listening. So she went on again. 24 hours, I think, or is it 12? Oh, don't bother me, said the Duchess. I never could abide figures. And with that, she began nursing a child again, singing a sort of lullaby to it as she did so, and giving it a violent shake at the end of every line. Okay, here is the song. Speak roughly to your little boy and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy because he knows it teases. Chorus, in which the cook and the baby join. Wow, wow, wow. While the Duchess sang the second verse of the song, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor little thing howled so that Alice could hardly hear the words. I speak severely to my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases. Chorus, wow, wow, wow. Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like, the Duchess said to Alice, flinging the baby at her as she spoke. I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen. And she hurried out of the room. The cook threw a frying pan after her as she went out, but it just missed her. Alice caught the baby with some difficulty, as it was a queer-shaped little creature and held out its arms and legs in all directions, just like a starfish, thought Alice. The poor little thing was snorting like a steam engine when she caught it, and kept doubling itself up and straightening itself out again, so that altogether, for the first minute or two, it was as much as she could do to hold it. As soon as she had made out the proper way of nursing it, which was to twist it up in a sort of a knot, and then keep tight hold of it at its right ear and left foot so as to prevent it undoing itself, she carried it out into the open air. If I don't take this child away with me, thought Alice, they're sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind? Dun, dun, dun. The Chronicles of Alice. I know there's the Chronicles of Narnia, but this is my version. Anyway, she said the last words out loud, and the little thing grunted in reply. It had left off sneezing by this time. Don't grunt, said Alice. That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself, though there are lots of people that do a lot of mean things when they express themselves. And you're just like, be human, all right? Be nice. Stop with the nastiness. But I digress. The baby grunted again, and Alice looked very anxiously into its face to see what was the matter with it. There could be no doubt. It had a very turn-up nose, much more like a snout than a real nose. Also, its eyes were getting extremely small for a baby. Altogether, Alice did not like the look of the thing at all, but perhaps it was only sobbing, she thought, and looked into its eyes again to see if there were any tears. Do you ever notice that some people have babies, people have babies, and they're like, oh, isn't it so cute? And sometimes babies aren't cute. Like, for myself, I was not a cute baby. I was actually quite ugly. And I'm not saying it just to say it. There are pictures of me. I look like a sack of flour. I had that little pink strawberry thing in there. And I was not cute. Not cute. And I'll admit that. I should actually post a picture. Ugh. Ooh, it's a horrid thing. It's a horrid sight. It's a horrid sight. Okay. No, there were no tears. If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear, said Alice seriously, I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now. The poor little thing sobbed again, or grunted. It was impossible to say which, and they went on for some while in silence. Alice was just beginning to think to herself, now what am I to do with this creature when I get it home? When it grunted again so violently that she looked down into its face in some alarm. This time there could be no mistake about it. It was neither more nor less than a pig, and she felt that it would be quite absurd for her to carry it further. So she set the little creature down and felt quite relieved to see it trot away quietly into the wood. If it had grown up, she said to herself, it would have made a dreadfully ugly child. But it makes rather a handsome pig, I think. And she began thinking over other children she knew, who might do very well as pigs, and was just saying to herself, if only one knew the right way to change them when she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards away. The cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought. Still, it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with respect. That's a good call. That's a good call. The introduction of our friend, the Cheshire Cat. Once again, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought him back. All right. Cheshire Puss, she began rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. Come, it's pleased so far, thought Alice, and she went on. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. Well, I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat, if you only walk long enough. Alice felt that this could not be denied, so she tried another question. What sort of people live about here? In that direction, the cat said, waving its right paw around, lives a hatter, and in that direction, waving the other paw, lives a March hare. Visit either you like, they're both mad. But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, here, let's show a picture of the Cheshire Cat. There's the cat, and there's Alice. That's a big cat with a big mouth. Oi. Oh, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad. Well, how do you know I'm mad, said Alice. You must be, said the cat, or you wouldn't have come. Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on. And how do you know that you're mad? To begin with, said the cat, a dog's not mad. You grant that? I suppose so, said Alice. Well then, the cat went on, you see, a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now, I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad. I call it purring, not growling, said Alice. Call it what you like, said the cat. Do you play croquet with the queen today? Ooh, I should like it very much, said Alice, but I haven't been invited yet. You'll see me there, said the cat, and vanished. Alice was not much surprised at this. She was getting so used to queer things happening. While she was looking at the place where it had been, it suddenly appeared again. By the by, what became of the baby? Said the cat. I'd nearly forgotten to ask. It turned into a pig, Alice quietly said, just as if it had come back in a natural way. I thought it would, said the cat, and vanished again. Alice waited a little, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear, and after a minute or two she walked out into the direction in which the March hare was said to live. I've seen hatters before, she said to herself. The March hare will be much the most more interesting, and perhaps, as this is May, it won't be raving mad. At least, not so mad as it was in March. As she said this, she looked up, and there was the cat again, sitting on a branch of a tree. Did you say pig or fig? Said the cat. Oh, I do love figs. I said pig, replied Alice, and I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so suddenly. You make one quite giddy. All right, said the cat, and this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone. Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, thought Alice, but a grin without a cat, it's the most curious thing I ever saw in my life. She had not gone much farther before she came in sight of the house of the March hare. She thought it must be the right house because the chimneys were shaped like ears and the roof was thatched with fur. It was so large a house that she did not like to go near it till she had nibbled some more of the left-hand bit of mushroom and raised herself to about 2 feet high. Even then, she walked up towards it rather timidly, saying to herself, Suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the Hatter instead. Oy vey. Alice, what the hell is going on here? Okay. She did not mention Dinah. You believe that? Still shocking. She did not mention Dinah. The Cheshire Cat. I do like the Cheshire Cat. Like I said, I've never read this book, but whenever you see pictures of the cat, he's pretty fucking cool, right? He's got that grin, he's got those stripes, and he looks a little evil. Once again, it's like something you would see like on an acid trip, right? That's how I'm feeling about this Cheshire Cat. This whole situation in this chapter, I think like the last chapter, it's just moving things along. The Pig and the Pepper, not the most interesting thing, but it's the introduction of the Cheshire Cat, which is obviously an important character in this novel. The Duchess is off to play croquet. Funny thing about croquet, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I loved croquet as a kid. I used to have it set in my backyard. And if you ever saw the movie Heathers, the four girls in the beginning, the three Heathers and Veronica, who's played by Winona Ryder, they're playing croquet and they're listening, when I was just a little girl, and they're dressed like in such a great outfits. Anyway, I digress. The point is this. I do like me a game of croquet. It's been many years. So in this chapter, what I do find interesting is Alice still is very ballsy, still minding her manners, which is interesting considering she barged into the house. But Alice really does know how to adapt to her people and to like navigate around these situations. So it's kind of like us, right? We need to know how to navigate ourselves around people that are assholes or people that are jackwads or just interesting people. You know, I think in life, the whole thing is we're always readjusting who we are around different types of people. And I think today especially, because there's so many people that are, you know, in such different places, it's important that you have compassion and empathy and change the way you operate around certain people. Whether it is talking to somebody that you can be frank with, like someone from the East Coast, you could be frank with someone like me. But somewhere in a different part of the country, they're not as frank and as very verbal and as very like in your face as someone from the East Coast. So you adjust the way you are around people. Not to say that you can't be authentic, and that's what I think is important. I think Alice is staying authentic to who she is. She's just navigating and adapting to her surroundings, which I think we've mentioned before. But I think it's really important for us to note that even today, we have to do that in certain situations in our lives. Whether it's at your job, your interpersonal relationships, or your familial relationships. Because you know what? You can still be your authentic self, but be your authentic self with light and love. And I think it's important to always have respect for others as you want to be treated and you want them to have respect for you. So with that being said, I think with this particular chapter, what you can glean from it, it's more about, you know, adjusting who you are and being kind to people, even if they are kind of out there, but of course standing your ground, which Alice does, because she does speak up for herself, and I think that's very important. When you feel like you're not being treated in the way you deserve to be treated or would like to be treated, it's important to speak up for yourself. So I'm going to encourage you to do that, because I think that is self-love and self-worth. And if you don't establish how you'd like to be treated, then people are going to treat you any way they see fit. Next, I also think it's important that we treat others with kindness, love, and respect. And once again, I've mentioned this in the beginning, kindness does not mean that you are weak. Kindness is a superpower because it means you can always go high when people go low. I know that's a total old saying, but it is true. Remember the situations in life where you've treated someone with kindness and they were still a jerk, but you walked away knowing like, hey, you know what? I still treated that person with kindness, and I walk away with having no regrets with the way I handled that situation. And then when it comes to situations in life, which we've discussed, Alice is staying the course. You know what? We know her goal is to get into the garden, and she's being diverted. Now it was the house with the Duchess, and now she's going to go to the March Hare's house. And you know what I think it comes down to? It's good to have a focus and a goal and a vision, but still staying open to the possibilities and knowing that there are many routes and ways and pathways you can take, because you don't know, like the adventure is in taking that different road. Listen, you know that book, The Road Less Traveled. At the end of the day, you don't need to be following everybody else on their path. You forge your own pathway, just like Alice is doing. She's navigating and she's embracing it all and working with whatever's being like shown to her. And she's growing from it. And that's the point of our journey, is to grow from it. So you definitely need to stay focused on whatever it is that you'd like to accomplish. But remember, be open to the possibilities and to other opportunities and possibilities and pathways and things that are put before you that might pique your interest, and see where that's going to take you. All right, my friends, that's enough of that. I'm hoping you are having a grand day. I'm hoping you enjoyed this chapter. I hope you tune in for the next one. And until then, toodly-doo, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay? Bye. Have a good one. Rosanna, Rosanna. That's my real name, Rosanna. Rosanna, Dana. That was a character from many years ago. I'm dating myself. But you know what? I've been dating myself for around 20 years. It's okay. We're in a great relationship. Totally great.